Welcome to What the Theory with your man Joel. I'm Joel, and this is part 2 of our brief discussion on the different modes of power in societies. The last one was a discussion of Michel Foucault's Discipline and Punish, which was a discussion on how we as individuals contribute towards our own objectification and how we normalize different behaviors and examine them. Today is a discussion on Gilles Deleuze. I don't know how they say that Frenchman's name, but anyway, it's about the postscript on the societies of control. Now, the difference between a society of control and a disciplinary society, if you remember, I contrasted a disciplinary society with a sovereign society. The sovereign one was there is a king, or there is a royal, or there's someone who's in charge who doesn't give a damn about what you're doing in your day-to-day but taxes you on the product that you make. Otherwise, your life is left to you. In a disciplinary society, the way you do things is routinized, it's regularized. You have to pass tests, you have to receive an examination in order for you to move from one institution to another, or to be given the access to do production. And that discipline is not only meted out by authority figures, but by each other. We become a sort of crowdsourced panopticon. In 1990, with the advent of the net, as it was called, Delueze's work is more a discussion of that we are moving out of disciplinary societies into societies of control. Now, this is a little abstract, but hopefully I can make it something that you would be interested in going to read, because this is a very short essay. It's about 4 pages or so. I would really encourage you to read it because it's almost prescient in terms of the discussion of the lives that we live now. I'll quote Delueze here. In disciplinary societies, the individual passes from one closed environment to another. Remember I spoke about how your body is sort of regulated, where you go, how you conduct yourself, and how you dress. All of that is part of a disciplinary society. So the individual passes from one closed environment to another, which is the family, the school, barracks, factory. In societies of control, which we're entering, operating with computers, enclosures go from being molds to becoming modulations. These continuously change. There is perpetual training that replaces going to school. There's continuous control, which replaces examination. The numerical language of control is made of codes that will provide you access to information. We no longer deal with the mass individual or pair. Individuals become individuals. They are samples, they are data, they are markets or banks. Now, I work in the tech field, and this is often a conversation that I have with my colleagues around the fact that data is often used to represent individuals as if that data were as good as the individual. And more, we're moving away from segmentation. So it's not target the 18 to 34 demographic. It's target this 18-year-old who was born in Kampala, who went to Makerere University. Like, it's going to a granular level to understand who you are as a person. And the only way that can happen is not by regulating what you do, it's by allowing you to do more and more in multiple environments. So Delueze, for instance, was speaking about the fact that on the internet, you are not regulated in what you can say, you're not regulated in where you can go. More than anything, you're given access to everything. And then your behavior, your interaction there is what is used to categorize you. And if you go against the rules of a certain website, go against the rules of a certain association, your access is pulled back. I saw recently Jordan Peterson was threatening people, saying, up yours, you woke moralists, we'll see who cancels who. That's not something 10 years ago anyone would understand. You're not being given access to a Twitter account as though that is now you being censored or completely given a loss of freedom of speech. This is a private company. But it shows that we're now moving into a society where a lot of your information is not in your hands. You are only provided access to your own image. So let's say you get onto YouTube and you watch a far-right video, just as an example, that activity determines the kinds of gates that you're going to go through, the kind of content that you're going to be seeing. Before, or even now, I think presently we're still in a bit of a disciplinary society, you're prevented from seeing something. I remember when I used to have DSTV as a kid, and there were those movies where they would put parental controls on the decoder, and I would obviously go and break them because, come on, we've got to see what's going on. We've got to see especially those movies which had VSNL. What was it? VSN, like violence. And I won't say the other things, but yeah, you wanted to watch that stuff. In a society of discipline, you would have to prevent someone's access to certain bits of information to regulate who they are. In a society of control, it's more that you're given freedom, do whatever you will, but your actions provide feedback. The system starts to understand who you are and starts to determine what you see. Now, the danger that Delueze saw in that is that it's the difference between the Soviet Union and probably the United States. In the Soviet Union, the walls that divided people who wanted to freely move from one place to another were physical. But in the United States, those walls are invisible. And if walls are invisible, you might never know that you're actually imprisoned. It becomes normal. And in societies of control, the examination is of what machines are. Now, the definition of machine, according to Delueze and Guattari, is that they are information systems. They take in inputs and produce a change in the world according to their own internal logic. So in a disciplinary society, I talked previously about school. When you go into school, you're actually going in as an input and you coming out as an output. However, now in school, it's more or less just about the grade that you're going to get. So let's say you join primary school and you get a very good grade. Probably you're going to go to a good school for secondary. If you pass that, you're going to go to a good university. If you pass that, then you're going to be given access to so many other different opportunities. But let's say you mess up on your primary school exam. It's highly likely now that you're going to be sent to a different kind of institution, which might give you a different kind of social crowd, which leads you down a different path. So more or less in societies of control, power never has to interact with you at any point. You never had to have UNEB come into and intervene in your life. You never had to have an authority figure come in and dissuade you or move you to something else. It's simply your own actions, your failure to read, your failure to pay attention, your failure to do the right things are the things that lead you down a certain path. And now with cybernetic control, the interesting thing about the word cyber is that it's rooted in the word steer in the Greek. So it's just a way to steer a massive ship from one point. You never have to physically touch and move the thing around. You can just move a few notches to the left or the right and a massive engine is turned from one place to another. And the danger, I think, for us living in an age where everything is on our phones, the most powerful information superhighway is just a click away. For us to think that that's only pure freedom, I think he would say that we need to think about it a little bit differently. What does it mean that all the music that you own, all your own pictures, all the information that you have is sitting on a server somewhere else? It can sound like a conspiracy theory, and often conspiracy theories get something wrong by thinking that there are people who are in charge of all of this. The point that I think someone who believes in a society of control is that it's not people, it's the machinery. People are just cogs in it, even the people who think they run it. Just like capital has its own logic, a society that is starting to develop this kind of logic can run without anyone ever being in charge. The only thing that matters is more and more data is being captured, and that data is determining where you go. Lastly, I think I've tried to come up with an example to show how an institution can be alive and can have a will that the individuals in that institution don't believe in. It's very possible that you have 10 people who sit on the board of a certain company and they all have to make a certain decision. But by the rules of that company and by the incentives it has, it's very possible that they come up with a decision or a compromise which none of those individuals actually wants. If you spoke to them as individuals, there's nothing that in the decision that's passed that they want. But ultimately, the institution has made a choice. Enough of those choices, and eventually you ask yourself, who is in charge? Is it the people, or it's the mechanism that you've put together? And that's the rationale behind a society of control. No one is really in charge, just like with the panopticon. But rather than the panopticon, which you can fight against, in which there are elements in which you say, I'm fighting the power, I'm fighting the man, there is no man to fight. Because we are just using the tools that supposedly give us freedom, but with that freedom comes a heavy price. Something to think about. Thank you, as always, for checking out What the Theory. I'll see you next time.